FromSoft released the first gameplay trailer of Armored Core 6 and it looks phenomenal. And I'm sure all of you who's played previous Armored Core games are gonna play it. But I'm curious, what about the rest? The millions who have played Dark Souls or Sekiro or Bloodborne and of course Elden Ring. Are you excited about Armored Core 6? Well, if not, this video is surely gonna get you excited. The big question on everybody's mind is, I haven't played other Armored Cores, so can I play this? And what's its connection with the previous Armored Core games? Well, FromSoft has made it abundantly clear you don't need any prior knowledge of Armored Core games. This is a complete new setting where interstellar travel is possible, so the effects of the past games have no bearings on the events of Armored Core 6. The last Armored Core released around 9 years ago, and in that space, FromSoft went all in on the Souls-like formula, which hit some massive highs, I think more than any of us imagined. Which is one of the main reasons why there is so much of buzz around Armored Core 6, because all those new players who played Elden Ring surely are intrigued what that company could do next. And looking at the trailer, I'm sure you have many questions. Is it open world? How are the boss fights? How much of it is actually customizable? And most interesting of them all, is it like other Soulsborne games? And in this short video, I'm going to try and answer all your questions. Now let's start with the elephant in the room. How is it different from other Souls games? Well, the most fun aspect about mecha genre is how skillfully you can build your armored core in the garage. Because there are so many ways to customize your armored core, as one build might work against one enemy, but you might have to take a completely different approach to defeat another. So if I had to draw an analogy, it's like building your very own Iron Man and you are Tony Stark.
What?
And you need one kind of iron suit to defeat Whiplash and something entirely unique to take on Thanos. So the armored core revolves roughly around upgrading of 6 main parts. First up, head. This basically contains all the sensors, optional radars and lasers, which I'm going to talk in detail a little later, and it is really very cool. Second is the core. This is the area where we the pilot sits inside of the armored core. So it's basically like the cockpit. Unfortunately, there are not many images which shows the internal of the core, but I did find this, which fairly explains how you sit inside of the core. Next up, arms. So you can carry handheld weaponry such as lasers which act as your melee weapon in one hand and a sophisticated long-range weapon in the other. But weapons in general require a complete different section, so we'll deep dive into them a little later in the video. Now, legs. Now this, according to me, is the most fun aspect of building the armored core, as you can either go for a very agile build by using very little attachments on your legs, or you can flip that and go for an all-out tank build and equip weapons and armor, but at the expense of agility. Next up, boosters. This is what makes the game so different from the other Soulsborne games, and I dare say, more fun. The boosters help you fly around the map for a limited vertical distance and also lets you glide on the ground at very high speeds. But remember, this is for a short duration and it all depends on how good your last essential upgrade is, the generators, which is the source of energy for your entire armored core. Now let's talk about that one factor where I believe that Armored Core 6 is going to be closer to other Souls games as compared to the previous Armored Core games, and that's the combat system. And I say this because in my personal experience of the few Armored Core games that I have played, I rarely learnt enemy attack patterns as you're too occupied either checking your energy levels or being at the optimum range of your enemy for your long range attacks that you really didn't care much about dodging. But from the trailer of Armored Core 6, it just feels that the attacks are much more choreographed, and I think that's what makes the Souls games so very tough, and it is this learning curve of understanding your enemy attacks which makes defeating him finally extremely satisfying, and I can definitely see that coming to Armored Core 6. And we can even see some hints coming through in the trailer as well, such as this whip slam attack which the player is using side boost to dodge out of, or this laser melee attack which the player tries to avoid but gets caught, or this long range laser beam you can clearly see the player boost away from, and finally this slam attack, and you can even hear a female voice telling us to watch out. Now let's talk about that one thing you guys have been waiting for, the weapons. So there are 4 weapon slots that you have at your disposal, of which you can use 2 at a time. So you can dual wield 2 machine guns in your arms or 2 missiles on your back, or you can use one of each, which is what I plan to use, a machine gun in one hand to stagger the enemy, followed by a missile or a melee weapon to do massive damage, just like in this gameplay demo. Or you can assemble this in your back, which I have no idea what it is, and that's just what we see in the demo. So you can imagine the many more ways you can customize your weapon, which is unlike any other Souls games, including Elden Ring. I mean, you can be this guy with an electrified whip. Remember Whiplash from earlier? Or you can choose to neutralize your enemies with an EMP shockwave. And how about using this pile bunker? And of course, this cluster bomb. Now let's just briefly talk about shields, because there will be times when you are in tight places, and I'm going to slow down the footage here because this is one of the coolest mechanics of the game. You see here, when we open the shield, there's a brief moment when the shield glows. And I've heard the devs talk that during that time you can block more incoming damage, which basically incentivizes people who block optimally rather than keeping that shield up all the time. However, one aspect of the fighting does remind me of Sekiro, which is where it all started, and that's the stagger system, wherein you break the posture of your enemy, and once you do that, you deal exponentially more damage in your next attack, which has roots first in Sekiro, then in Elden Ring, and now in Armored Core 6, which will make the fights way more interesting. And I wanted to share with you guys a small clip from the demo to show you exactly what I mean. This player here is using his machine gun to stagger him right now. You see that? And then he uses his missile to finish him off. And here again, he staggers him and then just drop kicks him out of his sight. Now, earlier in the video, I did touch upon scanners, and it really enhances the gameplay. So here, the player is scanning the arena to more precise plan his attack, unlike any other Souls games. There is a deep sense of satisfaction in planning not only your attacks, but also your build, and to see that plan perform as expected. I love this. So, I'm totally hyped for Armored Core 6, and although old Armored Cores were fun, this looks like a whole different level, and you can clearly see that in the open world setting and the kind of budget that this game is made with, and it shows in these amazing set pieces. And in my opinion, this game could be a revolution for the gaming industry and potentially even bigger than Elden Ring. Because let's face it, games like Elden Ring or other Souls-like games are all complicated games, and the sense to overcome all odds is why these games have been so popular. Now add to that another complex layer to design and build your own armored core, the parts I mentioned plus the weapons. That feeling of accomplishment where you do an S tier mission and you get an attachment to upgrade your armored core is an experience which cannot be replicated in other Soulsborne games, where at best you get a new armor or a new sword or a skill from that sword. So, having said all of that, the game is only a month away and I just cannot wait to get my hands on it. And I would love to share my experience with you guys, so please subscribe and let's hope FromSoft has an even bigger winner than Elden Ring.